Welcome to Man of the Prize, the podcast. I'm Harvey, your host. How are you? How's the week treating you? But the better question is, how are you treating yourself? How you doing? Life can kick us in the butt, can beat us down, but how are you handling it? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're not letting life beat you up. If you are, stop. You're doing your best. You're trying your best. Keep that focus. You're going to be fine. Before I bring my guest in, I just had something I wanted to talk about. When you have four kids like I do, at an age where they're all on their phones using social media and such. So I'm on TikTok and such, and I saw a quote or a video, and it was something along the lines of the most important job for a father is to love the mother. And I'm like, that sounds nice, but I got offended when I saw that. My job as a father, with all due respect, and I have a great wife who's a fantastic mom. It's not my job to love her for the benefit of the kids. To me, my job as a father is to raise my kids, is to take care of them, make them moral beings, to make them positive people when they step out the house. Not to love mom. That's my job as a husband. But as a father, to me, it seems like the focus should be the kids, not to make mom happy so that she's a better mother. To me, it almost kind of diminishes my space as a father, as a parent. So I'm not a fan of that. And what I'm really getting to is, after I thought about that for a while, I'm like, why do I even care what some random post or quote said on social media or TV or a newspaper? Like, none of that stuff is important. I know how good of a parent I am. Why am I letting the outside world define anything that I do? So I'm going to leave that question to you. Are you letting the things that you see in the world affect how you feel about yourself? Does it define you as a man? We spend a lot of time letting all that garbage, all that white noise affect us, when you should really focus on yourself, on you, on your spirituality, on how you feel about you, on how you take care of yourself. And it felt like a good way to lead into who my guest is today. Justin Wesenberg is my guest. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Harvey. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, no, thanks for coming. First thing I do, because I love a good bio. So I like to print out the bio, get the sheet out. I'm going to crack this open and get a good read. So let's find out a little bit about our guest here. Justin Wesenberg is an international best-selling author, channel, poet, and spiritual guide. His mission is to awaken the world and create unity on earth. He has written numerous poetry books on unity consciousness, finding freedom, spiritual awakening, self-realization, personal transformation, enlightenment, claiming your inner goddess, and manifesting your reality. He loves to spend time in the mountains, hiking, climbing, skiing, and meditating in the peace of nature. You sound interesting, Sarah. We're going to have a fun conversation. My first question, and I ask every man this because we don't typically get this as men. What is it like to hear your accomplishments, to hear the good stuff about you? What's it like to hear that read back?
It feels good, to be honest. I feel like, especially for men, they spend their whole lives doing all this work to help other people and very rarely get acknowledged for what they do.
Exactly. We don't get our flowers at all. It's a rarity to be taught. So I do that because I think, since it's something we don't get much, and just like you just said, I want to throw that back. You know what? You went to school. You spent that time. You wrote that book. You raised that family. You married that woman. You've done all these phenomenal things. And I just want you to know it's appreciated, that it's respected, that I honor you for what you have done. If you don't hear it, you're going to hear it now. So if nothing else, I think it's a good way to start. Because with this podcast, you, for the hour, however long we speak, are the topic. You're the focus. And just as a man, think about the last time you were the focus of anything, when it was just about you, not about what you did or who you provide for, who you take care of. It's you. And I want you to kind of get in that focus. You're not cocky, you're confident. I've done that stuff. I have letters at the end of my name for a reason, right? So that's why I do that. This podcast is called Men Are the Prize. I take the word prize, and four of the letters represent characteristics I think are good for men. And we're going to talk about them. You ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do it. The first letter in the word prize is P. The word is purpose. Purpose is defined as a reason for which something is done or created or for which something exists. So, Justin, what is your purpose?
My purpose is to help people realize their divinity. And to me, that means helping people really connect to their true self and who they are. And I feel like for the majority of people, they're not connected. And in my opinion, that lack of connection is what causes all of the suffering that we face in the world. Because when we see ourselves as separate and we have that disconnection, then we create suffering, we create stress, we create anxiety, we create all these sort of perceived negative emotions. But when we're connected to ourselves, when we're connected to the universe, I feel like it just unlocks that level of peace, that level of certainty, that level of clarity that everyone's searching for, but nobody knows how to achieve.
Do me a favor, elaborate on what you mean by divinity.
Okay, so to me, divinity is it's kind of like realizing your innate nature, your innate connection with the universe. And the best way I can describe this honestly is to share an experience that I had because I don't 100% know how to explain it.
Okay.
But it was quite a few years ago now. I was meditating, and at this point, I was pretty deep in my spiritual practice, and I had an experience that I'll never forget. And in this meditation, I sat down, and I kind of like it was like my soul left my body, like it kind of shot up out of my body, and I saw these meteors and asteroids flying by me. Then all of a sudden, I was in this field of like infinite light, and I was my conscious awareness, but my human body was gone. All my physicality was gone. I was just this conscious awareness in this field of light. And it just felt like this infinite connection to, source or the universe or God or the creator, like whatever, name you want to call it. And after a while, I started kind of freaking out because I'm like, well, what about my body? Like, am I dead? Like I didn't know. And so I went back. And when I got back to my body, I said to myself, I want to go back to that place, but this time like more controlled, more prepared, because it totally caught me by surprise. And it was honestly a little bit terrifying. So when I went back, I was doing some breath work and I went into this space between the breath, but this time it was the exact opposite. It was this space of complete blackness, complete nothingness. And then when I got to this space, I heard a voice that said, "You are God, God lies within you, and you are one with all." And then when I came back to my body again, this time I had this like overwhelming ecstatic feeling of joy for days afterwards. And it was this profound spiritual experience that I'll never forget. And after that, feeling that kind of infinite expansion of the light and that infinite creativity of the dark and that merging of the two, it kind of showed me how in human reality we all exist in this like dualistic society in this way of life, but that when we can sort of merge both those polar opposites and bring that harmony, that unity within ourselves, to me that is sort of the essence of divinity, is that realization of your true nature as a spiritual being rather than you know feeling kind of trapped in a human experience, if that makes sense.
I got you. I got you. Is there a definitive line? I mean, a difference in how you live and how you feel about yourself from before that experience to after? Was there a seismic change in how you dealt with life and how you saw things after that happened?
100%. Actually, the day after it happened, it was a couple days after it happened. Actually, I would everything I looked at was glowing with this like blue iridescent like energy, like people, plants, like everything. And it was kind of, I was kind of a bit worried. I'm like, am I going crazy? Like, this is not normal. But it taught me that, at least in that experience, that everything is kind of made up of energy or light or whatever you want to call it. And that energy that exists in everything also exists within me. And by allowing myself to understand that, it gave me a whole newfound sense of appreciation for the connection that I have to everything in the universe and to other people and to plants and to animals and to things. And it was just it totally restructured how I live my life, honestly. Before that experience, I was a pretty regular guy. I had a construction job, and I was getting interested in yoga and teaching yoga and stuff like that. But I was a pretty regular guy. And then after that experience, I went back for a brief few months, but I couldn't do that kind of work anymore. I couldn't go back to the old way of how things were after that experience. And I have yet to ever be able to do that. Like you see things from a totally new lens. Once you kind of know, you can't unknow, right? You can't
You're
go
right.
back to the way things
Mhm.
used to be. And so, yeah, absolutely. It's completely changed how I live my life now.
Did it cost you any relationships?
Yes, there were definitely people, especially I think the biggest thing for me that was such a surprise and actually really hard at first was when I told all my like really close friends and family about my experience, they all completely like brushed off like, "Oh, that sounds cool," but like I could tell they like didn't believe me, they didn't get it, they couldn't understand it, they couldn't comprehend. And it was actually at that point that I felt very, very alone because I felt like nobody could see me, nobody could hear me, nobody could understand me. And then a few months later, I actually met uh, a spiritual teacher through like a dance event, and she guided me for quite a few months and helped me understand like the process, her words of Kundalini awakening, spiritual awakening, and like this whole process of awakening and how that works. And that, it was very kind of reassuring for me because I was like, at the time, I thought I was going crazy. I thought I was like, what's happening to me? Like weird things were happening. I couldn't explain them. Looking back now, I would say this is like the universe or the spirit's way of kind of orchestrating events in my life to help me become who I need to be. But during the experience, it was very challenging, and I was grateful to have somebody who could relate to me. And there were definitely people, especially older friends that I had who weren't willing to kind of see things the way I did. And not that I was like, oh, I can't be around you, you don't see things the way I do, but it's like after a while, like once you learn to kind of have that connection to yourself and to the universe in such a profound way, people who don't, see things in the same way and who are very kind of closed-minded and very like, this is the way things are, and it's my opinion. And a lot of those relationships just kind of naturally fell away because we were no longer really aligned in like in energy. And so I feel like that really kind of, I did lose a couple good friends and even some close or family relations. So yeah, it was hard.
I don't know. Sometimes big changes in life, a change in vision or in focus. Sadly, we lose the people, but I don't know. Maybe it's not a loss. Maybe it's just time to move on, and it's not the worst thing to happen, I guess. And with that, I don't know. Maybe this leads into the next letter. The next letter in P.R.I.Z.E is R. The word is resilience, the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. So I don't know if this moment led to something, but we'll see. Can you think of a situation, something that happened, a moment in your life that maybe broke you or did something, but something that happened that wasn't really positive that you came out of and you discovered a resilience that you didn't know you had?
Absolutely. The biggest event I can think of was about 10 years ago. And it was uh, a really, really rough breakup. And the person, my partner at the time, when she broke up with me, I thought we were going to get married. Like I thought we were going to start a life together. And this was the first woman I ever really fell in love with and had a long-term relationship with. And I was just absolutely devastated. And, I didn't even see it coming. And I think I was so kind of naive and so like trusting in like the whole true love ideals and things. And when we broke up, it totally kind of swept the rug out from under my feet because all the plans we had had about where we were going to live and what we were going to do was gone. And I literally my entire plan for my life was gone. And I was like, well, what the heck am I going to do? And I remember like walking around, at the time I was living out with my parents out in the country, and I just walking through the fields, like crying my eyes out. I could hardly eat, I could hardly sleep. And then something happened, and I ended up uh, going to a yoga class. And the only reason I went was because they offered classes at night, and that was when we spent a lot of our time together. And I needed something to fill the void. I needed something to do. And during that first class, I had a profound experience where we were doing this like hip opening pose, and I was bawling my eyes out in the middle of class. And I was trying so hard to stop because as a guy mostly surrounded by women in like a dark, sweaty yoga room, I was like, oh, it's so embarrassing. I was trying so hard to keep it in, but I couldn't. And that it just kept coming and coming. And I remember after that class telling the yoga teacher, I was like, I'm pretty sure you changed my life forever. Like, I don't know how yet, but I'm pretty sure you did. And that being able to practice yoga and meditation, mindfulness, that was what saved my life at the time. Honestly, it was a very dark time for me. And every day I started practicing almost every day after that experience, and I went consistently. And the classes were really hard, really physical. Like it was quite challenging, honestly, in a way that I never would have expected. And being able to, I think especially for men, having that physicality, that movement when you're going through those trying times can really help you like move the energy. And it really gave me the strength to believe myself again. It really gave me the strength to get that confidence, that courage, that trust in myself back. Because, when your whole world is shaken and you're feeling so alone, like it can be really tough. And I had a great support from friends and family, but at the end of the day, it was up to me to make those changes and take the actions, do the things, and kind of pull myself back up onto my feet again. So that was a really pivotal, moment for me. And that was where my spiritual journey kind of began in a sense. And that's when I started diving into all this other stuff.
Okay. Okay. I know that feeling, that first, that hard breakup. So on the real quick, what do you think was worse? Being surprised that it was over or that it was over?
I think initially the surprise was honestly so devastating because it's like when like for instance, when something's coming, it can be less intense because you can prepare for it. Like for instance, uh, about a year and a half ago now, my dad passed away, and it was really a hard time for me. But for about 2 years before that, he had cancer, and it was kind of continually getting worse. There were more symptoms, there were more things, and as much as you want to hold on and have that person like survive, I knew in my heart that he was going. And so during that 2-year process, I had the time to release the grief through stages. And, there'd be times where it would get really bad. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he's going to go. And then he'd get better and kind of stick around for a few more months. And you're like, okay, like so there's kind of this roller coaster of hope. But there's for me, the grieving process started years before he actually passed away. So when it finally happened, I was almost ready in the sense, like obviously I was still upset, but it was way less than if he had like suddenly gone in a car accident or something like that. That's I think those kind of sudden traumatic experiences create such a shake up to our world. And so with that breakup, in a sense, it felt almost more devastating because it was such a dramatic shift that came out of nowhere. I think, if I had known for a while that it wasn't going to work out, it would have been a lot less like traumatic and painful. But I think that sudden kind of shock to the system can really throw people for a loop a lot more than, having the buildup or knowing in advance, so to speak.
I hear that. I hear that. The next letter is I, and I save that for the end. You'll see. So we'll skip that. The next letter in the word prize is Z. The word is zeal, my favorite letter in it because I feel like it opens a lot. So zeal, the best definition I found is enthusiastic devotion. So here's my question. What do you have? What do you have for you? So we exclude anything that is for family, for work, even friends or something, but there may be a part of it. Something for you that you do when life is slapping you around, when you're tired of carrying the weight of the world, the relationships of work or whatever, when you need to get away from the hardships of the world. What do you do for you so that you can deal with it? It doesn't mean that stuff goes away. It just means for a little while, it's just something to comfort you. How do you take care of yourself? What is one, hopefully, of many things that you do for yourself?
I actually do have many things. The biggest thing that I do is if I'm really in the thick of it, is I go outside into nature. And I usually go for a nature walk. Being out in nature for me is such a therapeutic process where I feel like I can just be myself. I'm in my natural state when I'm outside in nature. And especially if it's away from other people, like the city and all of that, like the more I can kind of take some distance, I find the easier it is for me to really process my emotions or process my thoughts and feelings. So I'll go for like an hour or two walk. And usually while I'm out in nature, I will also meditate, either at the river or in the forest or in the sunshine, like wherever I can, that is a practice for me that I do multiple times a day as well. And it really helps me to kind of come back to myself, get my energy back, especially if I'm exhausted from like doing stuff with the kids or, dealing with work stuff or just whatever, like there's so many things in life that kind of pull us and can really, drain us sometimes. So that is time in nature, meditation. I do yoga almost every morning. That helps me, kind of start my day off right. And especially with lots of like computer time these days, I need the stretching, I need the movement, like my body needs to move. And then I also have my hobbies. Like I love to go rock climbing, I love skiing, I love hiking, I love mountain biking. So, and that all kind of ties into being outside in nature as well. And it's a bit harder now with the kids to get out and do it as much as I used to, but I certainly still do it when I can. And but those are kind of the things I do to take care of myself. And I'm very good at self-care. I spend an inordinate amount of time doing self-care compared to most people,
Okay.
especially men. So I'm pretty good at it. But yeah, those are all the things I do to take care of myself.
That's good. That's good. I think, I mean, zeal obviously is part of this word, but I really started getting into that question because I asked men what they do for themselves, the whole self-care thing. And that's still new to me as I started doing this podcast. And it forced me to answer some of these questions for myself. But a lot of the men I asked, what do you do for you? What's that thing, when it's crazy? And most men don't have an answer. Most men don't have something that they love that they do for themselves. This concept of self-care, of doing something, even if at points, the best way for me to describe it, I have 4 kids here. I'm a stay-at-home dad of 4. So there can be times when one person is sick, one person is upset, another one's in the mood. I have 3 daughters, by the way. So that's all kinds of crazy energy in this house. But so you're having a hard time too. And you have a spouse and you guys raise and take care of the house and the family together, but you are like at a low and you need to do something right. And do you have something where even where your other person really needs you, but you still can say, listen, I know it's hard, but right now I have nothing. Right now I'm at 0. If I'm here, I'm not helping you. I'm not helping the kids. I'm not helping the situation. I need like 2 hours. I need to go do something. I need to go yell in the field or something, or I need to do something, listen to some music. And the concept of one doing something that at times might even bother somebody else, but would make you feel better is a really hard concept to accept. And sometimes that's what we need to do. Sometimes I need to do something. Babe, I'm sorry. You're going to have to feed these kids. You have to do all this. I got to go right now. And I will come back and I will be 10 times better and we can handle it. But I need it. I think that's one issue that I've seen with men. It's like, one, I shouldn't be doing something for myself. 2, I'm supposed to take care of everybody. I can't just leave them. We are so wrapped up in what masculinity and what we're supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
is that the concept of taking care of yourself seems selfish.
It's true. And
Yeah.
I totally agree. I feel like, for me, I stepped out of 3. And so that, they were all my wife's kids she had in a previous relationship. And so for me, it's been about 2 years, just over 2 years now, that we've been together. And so I went from like no kids to 3 boys, age 8, 11, and 13. And so it's like, for me, it was a drastic shift in, you know, responsibility because before I was just taking care of myself and that's, pretty easy for the most part. But once you kind of enter that family life, like I have a whole new respect for parents and dads, especially because I know what it's like now. I've been in that position and it can be tough when, and it is, I think a lot of people do have sort of that guilt around being selfish for taking time for themselves. But ultimately, like you said, you'll come back 10 times the man you were at that time because you've taken some time to recharge your batteries, recharge your energy. And I know when I need to do that because I start checking out and it gets to the point where I'm going to go lie in bed if I can't function because I have no energy left, and that's when I go for a walk or go meditate. Even if I go meditate in my room for 20 minutes, like that can help just get me back to myself again. So
It's an important topic when I talk to men. It's a big thing. And besides doing this podcast, I coach men too. And a lot of times when I talk to them, it's this journey to, yeah, you're worth the time. You're
mhm.
worth the effort. You're worth stepping away, even if it bothers others, because you deserve to take care of yourself, no matter how it affects other people. And that's a hard thing to do. I'm supposed to take care of this family. That's why I'm raised. I'm Caribbean, I'm Haitian. I'm supposed to be working. And my wife's supposed to be here taking care of the kids. And we're the complete opposite because I'm stay at home and she works. So this concept of just taking care of myself, it sounds selfish. And my response to men is, okay, it is selfish. Now go take care of yourself. You deserve it. It seems so simple, but it's so important. You definitely deserve to go and do something. And masculinities make it difficult for us to accept that.
I think the challenge for a lot of men is a lot of their self-worth is wrapped up in being that provider, having that sort of role as I take care of everyone. And so they don't know how to take care of themselves but like you were saying earlier, like they are worthy of doing that, but they don't see that because to them, their worth is defined by how they provide for others, not how they take care of themselves.
Mhm.
And seeing that inherent worth within themselves to be able to go and do some self-care or whatever they need to get back to who they are, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, we have a list. We have a hierarchy, family, house, kids, blah, blah, blah. We're never on that list. But I think, which is an interesting, we're going to go to the next one. The letter E, the word is expectation, a strong belief that something will happen to be the case in the future. So you married into family.
Mm-hmm.
You went from all I have to do is get up, feed myself, and make it to work and do whatever, to now I got to get up, potentially make sure my wife is up. Maybe she gets coffee or tea or whatever. She gets that
Mm-hmm.
hug she needs before she gets going. And to get the boys, who I don't know about your situation, but with kids that age, I imagine they're awake already. I know with my kids, they're up and about, so I don't have to wake them up. I have to wrangle them.
Mm-hmm.
So, did you expect to have kids? Maybe when you're younger, you're going to have a family, you do this. What I guess the family dynamic that you have now, how is it different from what you expected as you were growing up?
Well, growing up, I definitely, thought I would have kids one day, but I expected it to be very much like the traditional way, like you meet someone, you know, move in together, eventually have kids of your own, and then, do the whole family thing. And, it was completely kind of a shock to me to go about it the other way. But when I met my partner, I just knew that we had to be together. And I kind of told myself like, oh, I'm not going to ever date someone with kids because there's just so many other complications. But, uh, you know, she was so amazing. It made me be willing to try. And then, we moved in fairly early on after meeting. Like this was during COVID. We were doing an online program together for like about a year. So I knew her, but I didn't know her as well in person. But once we met in person and we really connected, and, she was, at the time I was living in Canada, she was moving to Canada to be with her friends. And so we ended up living together, and then it kind of just went from there. And, the first few weeks, few months was really tough because the boys, I think, were really testing me, like, who is this new guy? What is he doing in our life? And there's a lot of tantrums, a lot of, explosive moments. And for me, it was also a huge look at how I, am a parent. A lot of the stuff I had kind of modeled was from my dad, and it wasn't necessarily all great parenting or, reactions to things. And there was, a lot of explosive anger. But then, I remember one day I was talking to my wife. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is a lot. Like, I don't know how to handle, especially the youngest one. He's just kind of he calls himself a demon spawn. Like he's definitely a full on kid. And I just like, I don't know how to handle this. Like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. And she's like, well, I'm not getting divorced because you can't handle my kids. And then she said something to me that after she said that, it kind of all made sense. She's like, the reason they have tantrums is because they're either tired or hungry. That's 99% of the reason. And I was like, oh. And as soon as she said that, and I always kind of looked for it. I'm like, every time there's a kind of a freak out, I'm like, are they hungry or are they tired? Because before I would kind of take it personally and think, is this about me? Is this something I said? It's something I did, you know? And then now I'm like, oh, are they hungry or are they tired? And usually it's one or two of those things. And sometimes it's something else, but usually it's like, here's some food, maybe have or some rest, and it solves the problem. So for me, it was kind of a pivotal moment where I realized, like, first of all, it's not all about me. And second of all, um, there are things to look for as a parent to know like what's going on, because someone who's more new to parenting, I don't have the same experience, right? So
I hear you. And I think we have similar experience. We do. We definitely do. So my wife had two kids from a previous relationship when I met her. And literally, I had told everybody in my life, I mean, I grew up in a bad marriage, and my parents were terrible. So after seeing that and seeing other people in my family married and it not working out, I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not getting married. Maybe I have some kids with somebody, but I'm not marrying them. And of course, when you talk with that much confidence about something, no, just like you, I'm like, I'm not gonna, I don't know what's gonna happen. You saw her. Yeah, that's it. For me, I walked into work one day and saw this woman, and I'm like, I'm marrying her. Even though I had told anyone who would listen, I'm not marrying anyone. It's not happening. So her, and I'd also said that I don't know if I could marry somebody who's got kids. So of course, I'm not going to do it. So of course I did it. So I have four kids, and that stepfather versus the biological father thing can be. It's an interesting dynamic. And I think I'm a pretty good dad now. And one thing I've mentioned to dads is I tell them I take fatherhood personally, but I don't take my kids' actions personally because they're kids, because they're just being themselves. They don't know yet. And then I had the same thing. I'm a new guy coming in. Who are you hanging out with my mom, trying to tell me what to do, blah, 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 whatever. And, but I'll tell you one thing as a biological father, one thing. So I saw my first child born. Amazing. My first biological daughter, but just one of my amazing 4 kids. And for the first 6 months after she was born, she wouldn't talk to me or deal with me or anything. She hated me for the first 6 months. That forced me to realize I can't take these things personally. It's not like she didn't like me. She just liked mom a lot more, which is fair because I think at times I like mom a lot more than these kids, but I won't tell them that. But I understood that you have to understand with fatherhood, with kids, the kids are being kids. They're not, there's no nefarious reason why they're ignoring you or why
Mhm.
they're pooping in the bathroom and leaving a mess or doing all of this stuff. And I only talk about this because fatherhood is such a huge part of being a man. It's a big part of what we do because it's how I feel about myself. And I'm going to transfer that to my kids. And that's how I'm going to raise them. And that's how I want them to see me as this big, strong man who takes care of everything, who kills that spider when it comes in the room. And then, I don't like that. And bang, daddy took care of another one. It's a big thing. It's so important. Self-worth. I
Mhm.
need to feel good about myself to raise kids, right? Do you,
Absolutely.
are you, do you think, or has there been a time where maybe you weren't feeling at your best and it affected how you fathered?
100%. I find that when I am feeling stressed or like overwhelmed or overworked, I get way snappier with the kids way faster. And I do my best to keep myself in a good headspace so that I don't do that. But there are definitely times where, I'm just kind of on edge because of something that happened that day at work or whatever. And, one of the kids starts screaming or yelling or doing a tantrum. And then I kind of respond back with that same level of energy. And it's like, I really don't like being that way. I like being peaceful. I like being calm. I like being happy. But when you're on the edge and then the kid kind of pushes you over the edge, it's very easy to get sucked into the kind of meeting them on that level. And for me, that was it's happened a few times now, and I try my best to not, but also sometimes they're in a space where they can't even hear you until you get a bit more stern, until you get a bit more firm. Like they just, at least my experience, they'll just walk all over me sometimes until I'm like, no, like this is not happening. And then they kind of take me more seriously or maybe listen. But yeah, and my parenting style has also totally changed over the 2 years. Like at first I was kind of like you where I was almost I wouldn't say I was like kind of like very controlling. Like I felt like that even though they weren't my biological kids, they were almost like an extension of me because they were my family. And so I was a lot more controlling of like you should act like this and you shouldn't do that. And then after a while I kind of realized I'm like they're their own beings, they're their own person, and they have to learn their own lessons. And that's part of being a kid. And so when I disconnected myself from taking it all personally and looking at them as like an extension of me and look at them like no, they're their own separate being, they get to be themselves and they get to learn the natural consequences for their mistakes. So if they do mess up or they do say something or whatever, they are the ones to deal with that, not me. And so when I kind of took that step back and let them have sort of their more freedom to be themselves, I think it took a lot of pressure off of me feeling like they had to be a certain way or act a certain way. And I was like, no, they can figure it out themselves. Obviously, I'm going to do my best to teach them good, values and stuff, but I'm not inserting myself when I don't necessarily need to.
Okay. Do you include them or have you exposed them to a lot of the things that you do for your self-care? Because you got 3 boys. So are they yoga? Are they out there with you mountain climbing or, or riding bikes and stuff? Or the things that you do for your divinity? How much have you exposed your boys to that?
Uh, I mean, they definitely know. The two older ones are definitely less interested. I mean, but the youngest one, he just likes doing stuff with me. So, uh, I I normally meditate when the boys are at school just because it's easier for me to have quiet time.
Mhm.
But, you know, when we go on, we do quite a bit of like nature walks and hikes as a family, and everyone it can be a bit harder to get the older boys out because they're really into like video games and screen time. And we do our best to kind of moderate that, but they, after school and stuff, they're pretty exhausted. And I kind of let them have their time to be them. But a lot of family hikes, a lot of nature walks. We do go mountain biking. I brought them out climbing. One of the boys really didn't like it. He was kind of scared of heights. So I'm trying to expose them. This year we're gonna do some skiing, so that's gonna be exciting. But the youngest, he's really into a lot of things I do. Like I got him a yoga mat. He does yoga sometimes. He really likes, meditating. So, but he's just such a high energy person. He'll sit down and meditate for like 5 seconds and be like, all right, meditation complete, next spot, and runs off. And, but he actually also has had times where like he wants me to meditate with him. Like if he's having trouble sleeping before bed, I'll go in there, I'll do a little meditation for 5 minutes and it helps him go to sleep. So, there's definitely some of that. And he's definitely the most interested in sort of the spiritual concepts and the spiritual, divinity, awakening, all that kind of stuff. Like he's very interested in that. The other two, I don't think they're not, they don't seem to care that much. But they're also a little bit older and they're a little bit more like, less connection to me. I think with the youngest one, there's more connection to me because I came in at a pivotal time in his life. Like he doesn't actually remember his biological dad at all, I don't think really. So for me, it's like I kind of have taken that role for him, even though I'm a stepdad. So
Okay. Understood. Okay. So the last letter, not in the order, but in how we talk about it, is I. And it doesn't represent a word, but it represents the man that I'm speaking to. So when you kind of take off the shackles of life, the titles that we walk around with as husband, father, stepdad, employee, teacher, whatever, best friend, when you can throw all that stuff aside and it's just you. And I think you can appreciate this because you do yoga and you meditate. When it's just you and nothing else, who are you?
I am one with the universe when that happens. And that is the feeling I get, when I'm deep in meditation, I let go of all the expectations, all the pretenses, all the titles, like you said, everything. I feel this feeling inside of me, like where in my body, like in my heart space, I'm just one infinitely connected to the universe, to that energy. I feel like I'm just this conscious energy and that's it. And it's a very like liberating feeling because you let go of everything else and all, I feel like you were saying, there's shackles in so many ways, like your job title, your husband, you're a parent, your father, you're all these things. But when you're not any of that, who are you? And for me, it's that I'm the universe. I am that connection. I am that, focal point. And I love that feeling because to me that feels more natural than everything else. So for me, that's kind of my almost like my safe space, my home. That's that place inside where I am that infinite, connection to source, to energy, to God, to the universe. And that for me is a really profound place to be.
Are you happy?
Most of the time, yes. Sometimes no. And truthfully, I as much as I am connected in that way, there are definitely times where I struggle. And I think for me, at least currently, my biggest struggle is feeling like I'm making an impact in the lives of other people because I've, in myself, I feel great, but I'm like, there's a part of me that knows I'm meant to do bigger things than spending a lot of all this time like meditating and connecting. And these things are great for me to connect to myself, connect to the universe. But I feel like I have so much to give. And I feel like I haven't given enough yet, if that makes sense. Like I feel like I have more that I want to share with the world. And I have goals and ambitions I want to fulfill. And because I'm not there yet, there are definitely times where I am frustrated with myself. I do beat myself up thinking, I want to be farther. I want to be farther ahead than where I'm at right now.
I think you are one of millions, billions of men who feel that same way. But I also think there's a lot of men who don't know what happiness is. I asked that question, and some people you have to really think about that.
Mhm.
One, I don't know, but two, would I know if I was? What exactly would happiness mean to me? And obviously that's different for every man that I speak to. Happiness is going to be in the soul of the beholder. I don't know, just came up
Mhm.
with that. But I think happiness is just peace. I am content. I am, and you can, to me, I think you can be happy, but still want to do more. So if I use you as an example, I've done a lot already. I am in a good marriage. I'm a parent of good kids. We're doing well. We're taking care of things. I'm helping people, but there's more people that I want to help. to be able to say, I'm good now. I'm happy with where I am currently, but I'm going to be there in a year, or I'm going to do more. So I could be happy, but not satisfied. Maybe that's the best way to say it.
I like that. Yeah.
So maybe
Yeah.
better it is, I think.
Yeah. And absolutely, I would say I am happy, and I have a lot of things to be grateful for. I have an amazing relationship with my wife. We've got great kids. We live in a nice house. We can, afford all of our expenses. And, I live a very comfortable, peaceful, happy life. And I'd say most of the time I am pretty happy. But there are things, I do feel like there's that urge inside of me to do more. And, but also something I'm really learning, because sometimes I feel like I'm really patient, but I'm not sure if I really am, is to appreciate the journey and appreciate where you're at right now, and not always try and be striving ahead for something more. And I feel like a lot of men, I'll be happy when, I'll be happy if, and there's always something down the road that when I get that thing or I feel that way, I'll be happy. And I think for a lot of people, happiness is an inside job. Happiness happens now, and then regardless of whether you have something or not. And I think that's really the best way to look at it from my perspective, is just how can I be happy in the moment without anything? Because and again, that's another thing meditation reminds me. I can be in that meditative space, disconnected from everything, yet connected to everything, happy in the moment, regardless of my bank account or my job or what my boss says, or my relationship with my family, my wife, my house, anything. Letting go of all of that, happiness can exist. So
All
yes, I
right.
am happy.
That's good. That's good to hear. I asked that, and most men say that. I honestly don't always believe when I hear that, because I purposely ask that question that way.
Mhm.
I don't want you to know that that's coming. I want you to,
Totally.
like, are you happy? And oh, what? I don't know. It kind of forces you to really contemplate things really quick. And there's no pressure with the question, but it feels like a pressurized question when it's asked, because you don't know what's coming. And life is that way. A lot of things happen. Happiness is something that maybe it takes you a little while to realize you're there. So
Totally.
when you get to happiness, and it takes a while, because I think we're so used to being stretched too far, stressed, struggle, to be in a place where you know what, my bills are paid. I'm not concerned with that. My kids are happy. They got the stuff they want. My wife is happy. When you get to a place like that, you sometimes probably have to sit down and take a breath and say, I don't really have any issues right now. Like, I'm okay. I think I'm happy. And it's so interesting, because
Exactly.
we don't do that. Not to say that that's something that maybe only women do. We definitely don't do that. Men don't think about their emotions or how they feel about a situation. We just do it. We just deal with the situation. So I
Hmm.
like throwing that idea. Being happy is a good thing. And getting there is important. And you appreciate being happy more because you know how long it took you to get to happiness.
Hmm.
But so thank you for answering the questions in that P.R.I.Z.E mantra that I kind of came up with. I have a few more random questions, and then I think we'll be good.
Okay.
So when I did this, I had two major questions that I asked people. One of them you've already answered, in terms of what you do for self-care. What do you do for you? What do you do to take care of you, no matter the cost? The second question, and this is a big thing with men, it's kind of been this topic that's been talked about a lot lately, and that is men and loneliness. So, do you have a friend, somebody you could call right now, a guy that you could call right now that's not a brother, that's not a family member, that you could call, and let's just say his name is Bob? Bob, I did something really stupid today. I don't even know why I did it. It was ridiculous. A friend that you could literally say, I did this, lay your problems at his feet. And he would do what men do. I can't believe you did that either, Justin. What would you think? Jabbing you, good talk, but that you'd feel comfortable laying your issues at his feet, being safe enough to tell him what's happened. And then maybe when that call is done, you know what? I feel better. Do you have a person who is that vessel for you?
I actually have two. My
That's
two best
amazing.
guy friends, and you know, part of, like, I didn't talk about this earlier, but about 8 months ago now, me and my wife moved to the States. She's American, and I'm originally from Canada.
Mhm.
But those guys both live back in my hometown, and so it's like leaving my direct friends and family to come here was a pretty big move for me. But I am very grateful that I can still pick up the phone and call them and say, "Hey, this is what's going on. Can I just dump this out to you and get your feedback?" And you know, it's been a bit trickier not being there in person because a lot of times we'll meet in person and talk. But absolutely have those people. And the other challenge with it is, with their work and stuff, so they might not always pick up the phone, right? Because they're pretty busy. But I know that if I text them and say, hey, I really need to talk, are you free sometime today? They would be able to make it happen, and I'm grateful for that because I see that a lot with men where, they have no one to talk to about their emotions, their problems, their issues. And it's a serious thing because as guys, you're just expected to know it all and do it all, but there's no support system behind you to help you move forward, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. And one, I'm thrilled that you have two. Doing this podcast, I talked to a lot of men who didn't have any. So this idea of these men walking this earth with nobody to drop their problems to. So it's hard enough being a man in general, but I'm carrying all this weight. And then not only is it the current weight, it's the past weight. It's hard being a teen boy growing up. We have all this stuff, especially if you like girls and you get your heart broke or you want to play a sport and you didn't make the team and you didn't have a dad to talk to about that stuff. So I'm just walking around with this weight of disappointment and low self-esteem and lack of energy and nowhere to put it. And that's the whole toxic masculinity term, because that's really, I think, in my humble opinion, just one man, that all that is somebody who didn't have the chance to just say it to somebody. So I'm just walking around upset and disappointed, and more and more and more and more of that is just piling up until one day I do something really stupid because I'm a human. And no matter what, eventually I'm going to overflow, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. And for men, we've got a title for it. So I'm glad that you've got somebody to talk to because it's so important. One, communicating is so good, but having somebody to communicate to is even more important. And I'm glad you've got several people to do that. That's wonderful. Two random bad podcast questions. I think they're fun. What are you afraid of that you cannot control?
Interesting. Off the top of my head, I can't actually think of anything. Um, I'm not, there's not a lot I'm afraid of. Um, maybe like my partner leaving me or something like that.
Right.
That's just because it's happened in the past and it has been very traumatic.
Right.
But I also am at this place now with my spiritual journey where like I don't get as phased by things anymore because I recognize that as much as I have control over myself and the things that I do, and a lot of the things that happen in the universe, I'm not in control. And I've accepted that and I'm okay with that. And I actually trust that if something happens that seems like a huge perceived negative experience, it's probably leading me to something way better. That's going to help me grow. That's going to help me evolve. And that's going to help me become the person I'm meant to be. Um, in terms of like the first thing that popped up with what is your greatest fear was like that I wouldn't live up to my own potential, but that is something I do control. So I couldn't say that. So, but that's kind of how I feel.
Interesting you said that. Here's the other question. What are you afraid of that you can control?
100% not living up to my full potential because I feel like, with all the pressures of society and family and, the expectations we have of ourselves, for me, it's definitely, not meeting the mark. When I am on my deathbed, I don't want to ever look back and say, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have tried that thing. I wish I would have taken that adventure. I wish I would have, tried harder to really achieve what my soul's desires are versus taking the easy way out or not giving life my all, basically.
Thank you so much for answering all these questions and having this conversation. I appreciate you being open, and you gave us a lot. Where can people find you? Social media, website? Tell us, this is the Justin Todd.
Oh,
So
okay.
I want to hear it. I want to hear about what you've written, what you're doing, what's upcoming. Tell me all about it.
Okay. Well, everything about me is on my website, justinwesenberg.com. And I do have, a bunch of social media channels. Most of my tags are at Justin Wesenberg, but to be honest, I'm not much of a social media person. Like I don't update things all the time. If you want to stay in touch with me, I have a newsletter on my website you can sign up for, and I actually give away my first 3 books for free. So it's the best way to find out, new things that are coming out, new books, new programs. What I'm actually doing right now This week, I'm actually planning on launching a mindfulness and meditation program for teens because I really feel like there's a huge mental health crisis with people in their teenage, young adult years, and meditation, mindfulness, yoga saved my life, and so I really want to be able to help these people have that connection with themselves and really be able to dive deep and discover who they are. So that's something I'm going to be hopefully releasing later this week. And in terms of books, I've published 8 books so far. My next book I'm planning on releasing early next year, probably spring of 2024. And again, all that stuff will be in the newsletter for people who are subscribed. And yeah, those are kind of my big projects that I'm working on right now. But actually, I have the next 4 books already written. I just have to compile them and publish them. So, the writing of the poetry comes very easily to me. Um, it's the making it into a book part that's harder because it's a bit more technical. It's not that bad, but it's about 2 weeks of like really focused energy and effort for me. And so finding that space where I have that, I like to kind of just do it all at once and really dive into the project and be super focused on it when I do it. So creating that like 2 week time frame of focused work, it's harder with the kids and other projects. So um but yeah, that's kind of more about me. I'm not sure if I can, but I'd love to share a poem if that's
Of
okay with you.
course, please. Yes.
So this is a poem I wrote about a year ago now, but it's really kind of been a lot of the inspiration for the work that I do in my writing and what I'm doing with teens, and it's called Light of Truth. One of the greatest issues facing children and youth is that they don't know how to find their truth. They are so divided, so separated, with nowhere to turn. They feel frustrated. They feel like no one understands, but the power to change lies in their hands. Only they have the power to make the choice, to follow the wisdom of their inner voice, guiding them so that they can be whole, to find the light that lies in their soul, but they don't know how to connect. They have not taken the time to sit and reflect on all the things that truly matter. They have not learned how to end the chatter. Their mind is consumed constantly in thought. They struggle to pay attention to what they've been taught. There is so much fear, and their parents don't know how they can help them learn and grow to become the people they were born to be, to let go of the stress so that they can be free. There is so much stimulation in their external reality, and they can't see who they are in totality, still creating their system of beliefs, yet feeling suffocated in so much grief. They do not know how to let go of all the expectations so that they can grow. Teen suicide is on the rise, and you can see the tears in their eyes. You know how much their heart aches, and you can see when their spirit breaks, torn between their family and friends. How can we learn to make amends? They feel like there is nothing to live for, and every day feels like a chore. They cannot see who they truly are, born from the light of the infinite stars. What if you had the power to change their fate so that they could finally open the gate to discover a new world, a brand new reality where they could find who they are in totality, to see the world with eyes anew, to know themselves, to find what is true? You have the power to help them change by allowing them to rearrange the way they see their current lives so that they can create a life that thrives. By helping them dissolve all separation, you will help them raise their vibration so that they can see their true form, the cosmic light where we are born. Humanity can live with a brand new view by guiding the youth to what is true. They will find this truth deep within their soul, guiding them to what it means to be whole. You can stop the death. You can stop the grief. It's time for them to find relief. You know in your heart what you need to do. Step forward with courage. They need you to help guide them to a new way of being so that they can live a life that is freeing. Now is the time for you to rise so that they can release those tears in their eyes. You will give them a reason to live. by helping them see how they can forgive all those who have seemingly done wrong. You will give them the courage to sing their own song. This will allow them to be unique, to follow their own path and find what they seek. You have the power, the ability to heal by guiding them to what is truly real. This is your mission. It's why you're here. Have the courage to overcome your fear and guide the youth to what you know is true, the unconditional love that lies within you. Now is the time to share your gift. The people need you. There's a world to lift. Through your poetry, your sacred song, they will come to find that they all belong. All of us united through the power of spirit, but we can forget until we come near it. Have the courage to share your heart and know that you are doing your part. There are millions of teens all over the earth who will learn to find what they are worth, not in the opinions of family and friends. They will find this when their soul transcends beyond the limitation of separation and duality. They will learn to see who they are in totality. All you must do is help them see the light eternal so that they can be free.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Oh my goodness. You touched on so that's a whole nother episode of the podcast. Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I have I have three teens in my home, two girls and a son. And as I kind of felt something with each. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. All the information for Justin will be in the episode notes where you can find him. Hopefully you go and sign up for the newsletter, get the books, get into yourself, into your soul. Justin, I appreciate your time. That was wonderful. If you've watched or listened, you know how I end these podcasts. Man, I'm glad that you gave us your time and you sat here and you listened to a conversation. You know I do this podcast so that you can hear men talk. That's really the point. At its most base, this podcast is a space for men to talk about whatever, because we don't do it enough. I want you to hear men talking about their experiences, about what they deal with, about what they struggle with, about their successes, their failures. I want you to hear men talk. That's what this is. So I hope you got the benefit of that, that it's okay to talk, to hear, to be the good friend that a man needs, because a lot of times we don't have that person. So be that friend, but also seek out that friend. And finally, if nobody's told you today or in the last few days, you know, I start this by reading a bio to let you guys know how awesome you are. But this is for you. Somebody's day is better because they're going to talk to you. Somebody's day is better because they're going to have a phone call with you today. You're going to walk in the room. You're going to talk. You're going to joke. You're going to laugh. You're going to have a serious conversation. Someone is waiting for you today. So when there are days when you don't feel like you're valuable, where you don't feel like you're worth anything, understand that somebody's day is better because you're coming. You have to show up. You have to show up for yourself. You have to show up for somebody else. We need you. I don't know you personally. I need you here. We men need to be here. We need to stick together to take care of each other, to take care of yourself. You are an amazing person. You are a man, and you are the prize. Have a great day. Thank you.
You're welcome, Arby. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate that. That was good. I appreciate the poem. I always take little bits. You know, I'm gonna to kind of prep people for the episode. I might just use the poem, if that's okay. I might just use the poem as the thing. Totally. Put that out. This is what's coming. You know, good talk, but this is how you end the episode. This is when you just drop the hammer. I like that a lot. So you were wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Let me see. Is there a way for me to do this? I may actually ask you, would you be willing to record a video separately and send it to me?
Absolutely. For the affirmations?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
Right. I mean, and I wanted to record something now, but if it's something you have, as much as I love this poem and that'll go for the episode, do you have something more tailored to a Father's Day type of thing? A poem or anything that you think might fit?
I might, but I could also just write one. That tends to be what I do.
Okay. All right. Well, then, right. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll do that. I could write a Father's Day poem
That
and share it, take a video. Absolutely I could do that.
that is perfect. Okay. So then, yeah. So poem, just mention your name, read everything that you did to promote yourself. Justin,
Okay.
episode, you can find me here. Happy Father's Day, or even if it's not for fathers, it's just for men. If you want to do that, however you see fit, but do that
Okay.
and then just send it back to me, and I'd really appreciate that.
Cool.
Happy. All
Absolutely,
right.
I can do that.
All right. Well, then we are good. Thank you, Justin.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate the time. Enjoy the rest of your day. And
Thanks,
don't let
Harvey. I appreciate you having me. And
oh,
yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing the episode.
I will let you know when it comes out. Don't let them kids get the best of you. Have a great day, sir. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
Harvey.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.